Yesterday, we heard from Dr. Anthony Fauci of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, who said he is totally in favor of reopening the country if done in an appropriate way, going on to say that an extended lockdown could result in irreparable damage and unintended consequences, putting public health at risk. Many people have felt this way for quite some time, but to see Dr. Fauci come out and say it is reassuring to many. But we're also getting new data from a variety of sources. One study suggests that ending lockdowns has actually improved the coronavirus pandemic in certain areas, resulting in a lower infection rate. In fact, a study says that the lockdowns may have actually backfired. But we're also seeing something interesting from Dr. Birx of the Coronavirus White House Task Force when she asked the CDC to investigate key cities that have remained locked down but have not seen the coronavirus infection rate go down. It stands to reason the lockdowns may have been a mistake. And at the very least, we can stop right now, stop the arguments and say, Dr. Fauci is in favor. Let's all just agree to trust the experts on this one. With that being said, the question I have is why are so many Democratic states and cities adamant on locking down? Even though we've seen the irreparable damage, we've seen the unintended consequences. People have been fleeing certain cities, notably New York. We have seen people truly suffer. Hospital staff are losing their jobs, over 1 million healthcare workers. Why then is there this dramatic and adamant push to make sure everything remains locked down in the face of everything that's happening? I can only say that many of these Democrats, obviously not all, and yes, even some Republicans, but it's these high profile Democrats that are purposefully strangling small business. At the very least, I can give you some specific examples, notably Atlas Gym, near where I live in New Jersey, where the governor actually threatened the business straight up. You're not reopening no matter what, even though we have all of this data, even though we have Dr. Fauci, none of it matters. They say no. And I don't get why. Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York said, don't worry, these businesses can hang on, they'll be fine, even though many of them have already permanently closed. They have to understand what's going on with the data, right? So maybe it's fair to say they're completely inept. They're ignorant. They have no idea what's going on. Okay, fine. Bad leadership, right? But then why target these businesses directly? One instance, notably in Michigan, where Governor Whitmer, the state went after this barber and tried to shut him down. Well, a court has ruled in his favor. I'll stop here. I want to go through this data and show you all of these stories and break down for you what shows me that there is a strange tribalism taking place where the data doesn't matter, where honest conversations don't matter. YouTube has been censoring videos like this one, censoring other doctors. I wonder if they might censor this. With that being said, the best thing you can do to support this video before we get started is to go to timcast.com/donate. Then you can find multiple ways to support my work. However, in the wake of potential censorship, I ask, share this video. It really is the best way to get around algorithmic manipulation and how YouTube props up mainstream media. If you just want to watch, that's fine too. Just hit the subscribe button, the like button, and the notification bell. Hopefully that's enough for YouTube to actually send you my videos. But with that being said, I do think there's a very real possibility that YouTube doesn't like this, and I don't know why. The culture war seems to be split right now between those who want the lockdown to remain and those who want to reopen. Unfortunately, for those who are demanding the lockdown remain, like some of these Democratic states who have extended their lockdowns, the data isn't on their side, nor is Dr. Fauci. So why are they doing it? When we look at the specific examples in Michigan and New Jersey, it seems to me like it's just on purpose. I can't think of any other reason. You know the Democratic governors have heard what Fauci said, right? Certainly they can then release the pressure and the tension on these desperate small businesses, right? No. They're doing it on purpose. In New Jersey, a woman was doing a live stream showing products in her store and the police were sent to shut her down. That has to be on purpose, right? None of it makes sense. Well, let's get started and read. Just very quickly, I'll go through some stories to give you key examples. Fauci said the other day that he's totally in favor of reopening. This is the source, just to prove it to you. The Hill reports that Fauci said on CNBC, the nation can't stay locked down, adding that irreparable damage and unintended consequences could ensue if lockdowns are prolonged, including risk to the public health. It is for that reason why the guidelines are being put forth so the states and the cities can start to re-enter and reopen. Perfect. But let's take a look at some of these stories. Notably in New Jersey, this man actually got arrested. He was leaving a gym. They were told that the patrons and the owners were in violation of an executive order, and this was only a couple days ago. This man apparently refused to identify himself. Many other people were cited. The governor of New Jersey addressed the gym specifically, saying something to the effect of, it's not a game, you can't do this, targeting the small business specifically with the weight of the governorship of New Jersey with the state power. I'm sorry, man, it just feels a little bit over the top if you ask me. But in Michigan, we saw something similar. In this instance, a 77-year-old barber refused to stay shut down. I mean, people have to pay their bills. You know, we saw what happened in Texas, too. So there are some Republicans who have gone pretty far. Texas, for instance. The salon owner got arrested, ultimately got released by the Supreme Court of Texas. Now, in Michigan, judge rules Michigan barber, 77, can stay open days after his license was suspended for defying Governor Whitmer's coronavirus lockdown. I don't really understand why it is that these specific states are so again, adamant on maintaining this. But take a look at what's going on now. Sales soar at Walmart and Home Depot during the pandemic. Billionaires are making massive amounts of money. And the CDC is being asked to investigate why it is that these states, these cities that remain locked down are still having these cases. Could it be that the lockdown isn't working? Could it be that it's actually making things worse? It could be. And I actually have some more stories to back that up. I'm not saying I know definitively, but it looks like that may be the case. So again, I ask the question of why it is these Democratic governors and mayors are so adamant on locking things down when we have reason to believe it's not going to help. Small businesses, they're being shuttered. They've been shuttered. Many will never reopen. But the big corporate chains are doing just fine. Walmart's profits are up. And in turn, the billionaires who control these companies and own these stocks are seeing major and massive profits. Something's not right here. Now, let's take a look at what's going on with the coronavirus pandemic, and then we can come back to the politics in a second. Dr. Birx asks the CDC to investigate coronavirus hotspots LA, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. as new daily cases fail to fall. The CDC has been asked to investigate new coronavirus cases in those cities. New daily coronavirus cases are refusing to drop in the cities despite ongoing shutdowns causing concern. Task Force Coordinator Dr. Dr Birx revealed Friday. Even though Washington has remained closed, LA has remained closed, Chicago has remained closed, we still see these ongoing cases, she told reporters during a White House news briefing. And I've asked the CDC, and the CDC is working with the local area in Chicago and this area, DC and LA, to really understand where all these new cases are coming from and what we need to do to prevent them in the future. It could be, as one study suggested, staying in your home and being locked up actually increases the likelihood that you get sick for a variety of reasons. There's more surface area to touch. If someone goes out and gets sick and brings that sickness back, everyone in the house will get it, as opposed to people who are going out because the lockdowns have been lifted. Thus, they're less likely to come in direct contact with exposed surfaces. And we actually have the data for that. Many U.S. states have seen lower infection rates after ending lockdowns that are now destroying millions of livelihoods worldwide, J.P. Morgan study claims. It's just that simple. Here, they say this: Alabama, Wisconsin, and Colorado are among those that saw lower infection rates after lockdown measures were lifted, according to the report. Take that into consideration and look at the other story from Dr. Birx. They're confused as to why the cases aren't going down. We have these states, not every state, but many, where we've seen the cases go down once the lockdowns were lifted. Could it be that being outside is actually beneficial? As I've stated in many videos, based on the studies and stories that have come out, it seems like social distancing is the correct move. Ending large gatherings is the correct move, but quarantining and staying at home was the wrong move. Shutting down businesses was also the wrong move. We need to be out, we need to be working, we need to be doing things, but we need to be conscious and socially distant. We're not doing that. Many states have begun to. All 50 states have now slowly started to reopen, but for some reason, the press is trying to make it seem like the lockdowns are mandatory no matter what. Now, I don't know why, as I've stated before. Some people speculate that the Democratic governors and the media are, working not necessarily in a conspiracy, but knowing this crisis is bad for Trump, they want to exploit it by extending it because it's destroying businesses. Perhaps. I don't necessarily want to even play that game. I don't think it really even matters. We can simply just say that there are small businesses that have been strangled purposefully by these governors, and we can certainly say that it's failing to work. So at the very least, these Democratic governors are completely inept. But why would the media play this game? Take a look at this story. Quote, "They threw us into chaos. Wisconsin lockdown ruling is latest in partisan war. Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling striking down Democratic governor's stay-at-home order underscores division in the state." Hold on a second. Wisconsin, chaos, huh? According to the study from JP Morgan, Wisconsin is one of the states that saw lower infection rates after the lockdowns were lifted. The Democratic governor failed. His stay-at-home order was overruled by the Supreme Court, and the state has been better off because of it. Why did this governor want that to maintain? So I'll tell you this, man. If you're concerned about your health and safety, it looks like we have a lot of data to suggest these are bad moves, and these Democrats are putting people's lives at risk. It's also true of some Republican governors too, but the best assessment I can give is that there are these high-profile Democratic politicians who are enforcing this stuff. It's Murphy of New Jersey, it's Cuomo, it's Mayor de Blasio, it's Evers. There's many. There is some concern over, perhaps Texas, maybe actually, I don't know if North Dakota is a Democrat or Republican, but there are concerns over this. We can see that there are many states that are Democrat-controlled that are enforcing much more strict lockdowns. The map you're looking at right now shows that the lighter it's a map. For those that are listening, there's a map of the U.S. The dark blue states have the harshest lockdowns, and the light blue have the lightest lockdowns. We can see to varying degrees everybody's kind of locked down a little bit, but of course it's very obviously the blue states that are for the most part locked down. Now, following Wisconsin shutting down, ending the lockdown, and things improving, at least that's what we see. On May 20th, Newsweek reported, Wisconsin sees highest single-day rise in coronavirus cases days after Supreme Court struck down lockdown extension. These are the stories that have been popping up across the board. And there's some questions you need to ask immediately. First of all, Newsweek is framing the story to make it seem like ending the lockdown has made things worse. That's the assumption most people would make when they read the story. But really look at it. First of all, what do we know? Well, the incubation period is a couple days to 14 days. They say days after the lockdown was lifted, they've seen the single highest day rise. That would mean that so you have the lockdown end, everybody goes out, gets infected. At least 2 days later, they start getting sick. So they all go and get tested, and then you see the numbers spike. That seems to make very little sense. I mean, if it's only days after, they should still be in the incubation period on average. And why would they all rush out to get coronavirus tests? Doesn't seem to make sense. It does make sense. They got sick during the lockdown. And actually, we have data to back this up. Check this out. Taking Newsweek at face value, ignore the lockdown extension, ignore the Supreme Court. Before the lockdown was even lifted, people were getting sick, and there was a massive increase because, of course, the increase couldn't have come after the fact, right? Incubation period. We then go back to a couple days later, May 22nd, and see that Wisconsin actually sees a decline. That stands to reason then, or it stands to reason that these people, these record numbers, this biggest increase we saw was during the lockdown. And then after they ended it, people were still getting sick because there's a lag effect due to incubation period. And now that it's over, things are actually getting better. But of course, it actually goes a little bit beyond this. In fact, according to that same study about these states, Daily Mail reports lockdowns failed to alter the course of pandemic and are now destroying millions of livelihoods worldwide. You'd think once we knew all of this, changes would come. But no. Mayor Bill de Blasio says shuttered businesses will be able to hang on for months. That's not true at all. And it flies in the face of what Fauci is saying, of what the CDC is saying, of what everyone and every study is saying right now. So I don't know if their goal is just to be the odd person out, to be the king of Karens in extending the lockdown orders. Whitmer extends Michigan's stay-at-home order until June 12th. What? Why? The study came out the other day suggesting this is a mistake. Anthony Fauci came out the other day suggesting it was a mistake. Perhaps now, because, again, this story, she extended the lockdown, before or around the same time that Anthony Fauci was talking about reopening. Maybe now she'll reconsider. Maybe now they will change their tune and things will actually start to improve. But I want to show you how the media has responded to this. It's the weirdest thing to me. Why South Dakota has become a hotspot, April 14th, 2020. Wow. South Dakota became a hotspot for the coronavirus. That's amazing. Here's another story from the New York Times. South Dakota meat plant is now country's biggest coronavirus hotspot. Refugees from around the world worked at the Smithfield pork factory in Sioux Falls. Now they face mounting illness and the sudden loss of their jobs. Here's one from NBC News. South Dakota Governor Noem, who opposed stay-home order, now faces coronavirus hotspot. The Republican, under fire for not taking bolder action, insists things are under control. It was never a hotspot. It never got that bad. Sure, there were some issues with the meat processing plant for sure. But South Dakota never locked down, nor did many other Republican-controlled states, and everything was fine. And as the data now suggests, it may have actually been worse to lock down. And now you've got Birx asking the CDC, why is it that cities that are locked down are actually still seeing coronavirus cases? They're not going down. The lockdown seems to have been a mistake. So all of these media outlets that attacked every Republican. There was one story in the I believe it was in the DC Examiner. Where does Ron DeSantis go for his apology? Why is Andrew Cuomo's approval rating so high? I think my takeaway from many of these news reports is that Democratic politicians just do whatever it is the press says they should do, or they react in the inverse to what it is what it is the media is criticizing. If NBC and Newsweek and all these stories come out attacking Republicans, as they often do for tribal reasons, Democrats don't want to face the brunt of the same negative press, maybe worry about re-election. So they just act in the inverse. They attack small businesses. They demand extended lockdowns, and maybe they're scared. It's what I've been saying for the past week or so. They're scared that if things do get bad, they'll take the blame. But they're also scared of the press. How many hit pieces came out about these Republican states because of the decisions they made that turned out to be the correct decisions? A ton. Now, the Dallas salon owner in Michigan is calling Governor Whitmer a tyrant, and I think this will absolutely resonate with the American people. It's funny for me to see these economic forecast models blame Trump for the fallout and argue that the election is going to swing Joe Biden in a major way. That's an Oxford economic model saying that Joe Biden's going to win a historical victory. Trump's going to lose in a historical landslide defeat because of the economy. And again, some people want to believe the Democrats are doing this on purpose to hurt the economy. These jobs will never come back. People won't have jobs to return to, and unemployment will remain in a very, very awful position. So maybe that will hurt Trump. Maybe unemployment will be bad. But I don't think that theory makes sense for one reason. I mean, you can argue the Democrats are really dumb if they were doing that on purpose, but in the end, I think people are going to see what's happening and they're going to blame the Democrats for it. Look, it's not every single Democrat. Not every single state is run by Democrats. Not every single heavy-handed action has been done by Democrats, but it does tend to be, at least for now, the Democrats that are pushing for this as Republicans and Republican voters are demanding things to be reopened. If someone in Dallas salon owner calling Governor Whitmer a tyrant, I think people across the country are going to recognize who had the heaviest hand in shutting down the economy. When you combine that information with stories like this, that the lockdowns may have backfired, lockdowns failed to alter the course, who's going to get the blame for this? Why would Donald Trump get the blame for this? To me, it doesn't seem to make sense. And lastly, did Japan just beat the virus without lockdowns or mass testing? Yeah, looks like they did. Now, I guess Bloomberg is just asking the question. Japan could end its state of emergency as early as Monday. Success against the pathogen comes despite loose lockdown. That's amazing. They say Japan's state of emergency is nearing its end with new cases of the coronavirus dwindling to mere dozens. It got there despite largely ignoring the default playbook. I think now we can conclude what needs to be concluded. JP Morgan's study, the lockdowns didn't do anything. Cities, according to Dr. Birx, that remain locked down are still seeing cases. In one study that I covered many, many times, 66% of those who are getting sick are staying home. Japan has now beat this without locking down. What more needs to be said? What do you need to say to Governor Murphy of New Jersey to get him to lay off this small business, or Governor Whitmer to not extend this lockdown? Well, I can't tell you, but they are definitely using this to push for mail-in voting. And there are a lot of questions and concerns, particularly in New Jersey. So I'll throw it to this as I wrap up. In North New Jersey, there are many people who are angry that their mail-in ballots never returned to their never came to their homes, and then they were still listed as having voted. Who took their ballots? Where did they go? Governor Murphy was asked about this. He did not give an answer. 2 days later, he said the Democratic primary will be held by mail-in vote. Without answering for the questions of the alleged fraud occurring in Partisan, New Jersey, you're just going to say go for it? Now, look, you can argue they're doing it on purpose. I certainly think they're taking advantage of this. I certainly think they're strangling out many of these businesses on purpose. Now, what their end goal is, I don't know. But when the governor of New Jersey targets a small business specifically and says no, well, that's on purpose. Okay, there's certainly things you can do to help these businesses survive. One story I was told, that I don't know if it's true, was a woman selling gift cards so that when she reopened, she could provide services, but for the time being, could still make money. They shut her down. And the woman who was doing the live stream shut her down. That is on purpose. That has nothing to do with COVID. So let me end by saying this. I know I said I was wrapping up 3 times now. Let me end by saying this. All that really matters, none of this matters. The political arguments don't matter. It's done. We don't need mail-in voting anymore. You know why? Because Fauci says it's time to reopen and we can be safe. Because the studies have shown the lockdowns didn't work. It's time to reopen. And that's not my opinion. That's from Dr. Fauci. Otherwise, we face serious damage. You can look, I don't know. I see this stuff and it's really frustrating. Maybe it's because I live in a Democrat state. You know, Governor, this is a blue state, it's New Jersey. And I've seen what they've done with these small businesses and how they've targeted them. So maybe it's my bias. But when I look at the map of state closures, it's very obviously blue states that are, for the most part, locking everything down and being really restrictive. Not all of them. Not every blue state, mind you. It just tends to be these Democrats doing this. Can you comment and tell me why? I guess we'll see. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastanews, and I will see you all then.